None of it is actually like on the track. Like anybody could teach you how to do gates and turns and all of that. I think the number one thing that I like to teach is just to keep it fun, right? Like I try to keep my clinics as fun as possible because I know so many people out there that it's like the kids feel like it's a job to go to the track, right? Like they feel like I have to show up and be perfect and do this all the time when your bike should be your free place. Like you go to school and you're like getting like critiqued over everything and whatever throughout the day it's stressful, and at the track it should be like I'm free, I'm on my bike, I'm having fun. So I really try to pass that along in little nuggets of pieces. Like obviously the parents are paying for me to coach them, so I coach them, but we have fun while we're doing it.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode. Olivia Armstrong, it's so good to meet you. And I've been excited to have this conversation. We've been talking back and forth for a while now, and you've been doing some cool things, and you love riding bikes and spending time with kids, and you've been traveling a bit too. But before we dive into more conversation, will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Olivia Armstrong. I was born and raised in Bend, Oregon. I started racing when I was 5 years old, and I'm now 24. So solid 19 years of riding my bike, and I still love it just like I did when I was a 5 year old. I'm currently an elite women pro. I have been racing, like I said, since I was five, and I went through the collegiate program of cycling, then into the pro ranks. So I've kind of done it all from novice up to pro. And I've also tried other disciplines of cycling. So I pretty much like all types of bikes. That's my way to go.
That's really cool. So at what point in your learning about different disciplines of cycling and in your collegiate program, and what was it that kept you engaged with BMX racing?
I think there's a couple avenues of that question, but I think one is that BMX and cycling is so specific, and like as much as you put into it is what you get out of it. I really like that as much work as you can do. If you don't do the work, you probably won't win the race. But if you put enough work in and you get that or not instant gratification, but you get that gratification from your own work, and that there's always a possibility to be better and better and better. That just like fills me inside. Like I love that drive. I love that like fire. That's what keeps me in it. And then when I started coaching, now it like kind of like sparked it again, like being able to pass on my knowledge to the next generation and just like see them win and see them do well. That's what's keeping me going even further.
That's cool. So when you were racing, so you raced as a kid, and then was there a time in your life when you decided to step away from racing, or where you took a break from it?
Yeah, so my story is a little bit different. I was that kid at the track at 5 years old. My older brother started racing, so I was just kind of there at the track. And I was like playing in the dirt and just eating candy and like doing the normal BMX kid stuff. And so I got convinced to get on a bike. And I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And I only raced state and local stuff until I was 14. So I didn't like just jump straight into nationals and traveling and doing all those things. My parents didn't have a lot of money, so we just didn't do that. But looking back at it, I'm very grateful that it kind of happened that way because I didn't really get that like burnout that most people do when they race nationals from 5 years old up to whatever. I think there was maybe like when I was like 11, I think I like stepped away for a little bit of a season. But my parents' rule was if you start the season, you end the season. Doesn't matter how much you're doing it, but if you start it, you end it. And so I chose the next season. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do swimming or something else. And then I was like, you know what? I miss my bike. I want to go back out and race. And it was mostly like I think most of my friends were out there and that kind of stuff. So it was really short of a break, but I really contribute. Like I didn't quit because I started racing nationals when I was 14, and then kind of just was able to like peak later. And that kind of kept me going and in a good progression into the pro class.
I love that. That is such a cool story, which is, I mean, it ties in with one of the reasons that I wanted to have the conversation with you. But one of the things that I talk a lot about is trying to encourage kids that are coming into racing to just stay at that local level and maybe go to some state races, but really trying to avoid the conversation of getting pulled in by other track members and different families because there's the excitement of going to semi-local nationals. And you can really quickly
Mm-hmm.
go down that rabbit hole of, okay, we have to go to these
And
bigger
spend
and
a
better
lot of
races
money.
and spend a lot of money. And you
Yeah.
mentioned yourself, you avoided that burnout because you spent 9 years before you went to a national. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
where do
Yeah.
you see that as something that's valuable for kids coming into the sport now?
Yeah, and I there's one person that I love that he really pushes that narrative, and it's Donnie Robinson. He is really big and he just says it's slow to fast, right? So you're not gonna you can go to all the races in the world and win all these things, but a lot of the times if you're going to a national and you want your kid to win, most likely the fastest way is not the best way for skills. And so in America in general, we just want to win every race possible instead of actually growing our skills. So I see a lot of Americans really faltering on a lot of the basics. Like they're fast, but are they going to be fast when they're in 1720? Probably not because they haven't built all of those skills. So I think that's such a big thing. I don't really see it changing that much in the States just because there are so many races. Like every single weekend, there's like a Gold Cup final and a state final, and like there's all these levels, and there's constant races to go to. But I really do think that like building those skills and then progressing up is the best way to go.
I like that. Um, so out of curiosity, so you raced, so between that time of 5 and 14, uh, were you good? Were you really competitive, or were you just a kid having a good time?
I was very lucky that I was just really natural on a bike. I was bigger in size for the girls, so I feel like that kind of helped me be better. I did win 10 state number ones in that group, so I can't say like I wasn't good. But there also weren't a lot of girls to compete with in Oregon. I'm trying to grow that as much as I can. I'm really, really trying. But back then I would race the boys, and I think that's what made me fast as well. I didn't just get to win every local race easy peasy. Like I was racing the boys and I had to compete. And I've always had a competitive nature. Um, but I think it grew more and more because I just wanted to beat the boys. Like I think that really helped me progress into it. But now I'm like super competitive at everything in life. So
Quick detour to one of our gold level sponsors, Luminex Neon, who has partnered with us to help accomplish the mission here at BMX Breakthrough. We're so grateful for their opportunity. And there's a special place, a near and dear place in my heart for neon, all things neon, whether that's on paper, whether it's shoes, whether it is a sign in a living room or a garage space, it doesn't matter. I love neon, always have, probably always will. And so neon signs create a unique statement piece. So if you're looking for that for your bike shop, for your garage, for your workspace, maybe it's for your living room, Luminex Neon offers exactly what you need. So with unparalleled craftsmanship and endless design possibilities, Luminex Neon is your go-to for brightening up any space. You can follow the link in the description and use our promo code BMX Breakthrough 10 in order to get 10% off of your order and to explore everything that Luminex Neon has to offer. That's awesome. I think that that BMX definitely helps to foster that competitive nature.
mm-hmm,
That's
for
something that
sure.
with our kids, I grew up racing, and with our kids, everything has become racing. And for
my wife, who did not grow up in that world, is she's like, everything is racing. Like the kids play Mario Kart and they race, and they go to get to into the
Yeah.
car and they race. And
Yeah. It makes
so
life fun. I don't know. Somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. I don't know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you were talking about the dynamic of racing against the boys. And that's one of the examples I use with my daughter, who's 7. And she
Hmm.
gets off the track and she goes, Dad, how do I beat that kid? And she's the really competitive one in the family.
Yeah.
And it's fun because it does foster that sense of competition and um individualism um and so I'm curious, did you have a natural ability for team sports as well, or were you not as excited about those?
Yeah, it was interesting. My parents put me in all the sports possible. Like BMX wasn't like the you have to do this sport. And like I did like basketball and volleyball and all the things. And I really grew to volleyball. I don't know why. I was just naturally gifted at that. And so through high school, I was on the varsity team and we won 2 state #1 titles. So I was racing like world championship BMX and then playing the state final volleyball. And so I thought it was really cool to take stuff that I learned from BMX as an individual sport into my team. And I feel like I was able to be a good leader and help my team in aspects of like pressure. Cause like BMX, I'm standing on top of the hill in front of the whole world, right? And so I can take that into volleyball. And then there was many things that like my coaches were awesome and they taught us a lot of mental things as a team that I feel like I really helped in BMX. So it wasn't hard for me, but it definitely was different. And I was able to learn from both. And I feel like that helped me a lot in coaching as well, just being able to see the team side and the individual side.
I like that. And that's a good perspective, is being able to see that when you are working with the kids that you are, and being able to come in. And oh, so one of the things that you talked about, and sometime over this last year, I remember seeing a post about a parents clinic that you had put on, and it caught my eye because it was right in line with so many of the things that I would love for parents to hear. So will
Hmm.
you tell us about what it was that you, maybe like how you got to deciding to do this, and then what it was that you put on?
Yeah, so I am yet again blessed. I love my parents. They were awesome and supportive. And so from 5 years old up to now, all I've had is support. I've never had a parent be angry at me unless I didn't give my full effort. I was always taught like effort is it. It's not the finish that counts. Like my mom would write, love you no matter the finish. And like she meant that. And my dad on the same side. So when I started to coach other people and like you could see it at the local tracks of like parents screaming at their kids and just not being probably the best support that they could. um I saw that and it soaked in and I was like I think the reason why I'm still in the sport is because I had that foundation of support and I was able to put the pressure on myself instead of it being an external force, right? Or external pressure. And being with a lot of families and coaching at clinics and then coaching, I do a remote coaching as well. So I get to really know families and I get to see the dynamic and like not just what's behind the closed door or in front of the closed door or whatever. Um, and I really saw the need for it. I saw that a lot of these kids were more scared to lose because their parents were going to be mad than because they wanted it themselves. And that hit hard for me because I was like, I wanted to win, and that's what made me like that was the good pressure that made me elevate my performance and go and win, right? Um, so I decided I was like, hey, if I want to help these kids, it's not going to start with helping them. Like I can give them resources to like, and they can talk to me instead of their parents about certain things, but it's got to go to the root. So I I talked to a couple people and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a clinic for parents. Do you think anybody would be interested? And I had, I think, like 8 to 10 parents. And I think the biggest block is there is an ego. Like, hey, I'm perfect. I'm not a bad parent. I'm not a bad parent or like coach to my kid, right? And so that might be a little hurdle that I'm gonna have to get over a little bit. But the people that did log on, it was just on a WebEx call, and it was awesome. I went through kind of my story of how I was raised, and not saying it's right or wrong, but I feel like I benefited from it. And I do have a mental coaching book that I go through with all my athletes. And I pulled a bunch of pieces from that I think were a good perspective for the parents, not just the kids. And kind of just went through that. And then I just did a question and answer afterwards and tried to really help as much as I could. And I think the parents that did log on got some beneficial work to be done. So
That's really cool. I love that dynamic because one of the stories that I have told before was this mom who met her kid outside the finish line. I was in Caldwell, Idaho at Gem State Nationals, was at 24. And
mhm.
this kid comes across the finish line. He's like 8 or 10 years old, and he comes across the line. And Saturday, his mom's just ecstatic. And I figure, maybe he's 10, 12. I don't know. But anyway, he's embarrassed. He looks embarrassed, and everybody's in front of him. And I thought, okay, like at that age, yeah, absolutely, you would start to get embarrassed. Well, I come to find out that not even 24 hours later, exact same location, mom comes over and she starts yelling at him about how disappointing he is. And you had it, you were there, you just gave up. And so just yelling at him. And again, he's embarrassed, but for a completely different reason.
Mhm.
And it was so sad to me because what I realized in that was that he's going to grow up and he's going to more than likely he's going to hate racing, he's going to hate his bike, and he's going to despise you.
Yeah.
And because that's not support. So it was shortly after that I saw what you were doing, and I thought, wow, if we could empower parents to be better parents, better cheerleaders,
Mhm.
what would that do for the sport?
Yeah. I think it'd be big. And I think too, like it's that ego, but it's helping the kids in the long run, right? Like these kids love their bike and that's why they do it. And I would hate to see them quit. And I've seen so many around me quit because of that manner and that reason, right? And like I tell people sometimes I don't even think my mom knows what I'm doing out there. Like she's been in the sport for so long, but she couldn't tell me if I had a good gait or a bad gait. Like she's like, "Oh, how did you feel, honey?" And I'm like, "So great, mom. Thanks." She gives me my seat post and my water and my video, and we're good to go.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. But and there's something to be said for her encouragement is in her eyes, and I can speak from the perspective of a parent, is that it doesn't matter. To some extent, you did great out there
Yeah.
because you were out there and you were doing it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so however you came across the finish line or however your gate turned out is, I think that from the words that you quoted from your mom is she's just super excited for what you're doing and how you're doing it, which
Yeah.
is cool.
And that's what I tell parents. I had a couple weekends ago. I told one of the dads, I was like, "Hey, sometimes you just gotta kind of care less. You gotta love and care less." And that's where I think this balance is all about. Like they care so much that they think it's kind of like they're out there winning or losing, but it's really your kid. So yeah, I'm hoping that in the coming year I'll help some more parents to help more kids. So
Out of curiosity, how was that received?
this parent is awesome and trusts me, and we've built a good relationship. To trust what I have to say. So he took it very well. Other parents I don't think would take that as well. But I know where to put my 2 cents in when I when it's respected and taken in.
I like that. Yeah, and I think too that is that perspective of careless is one that is super valuable because when, like you said, they're too involved and it's like they're out there winning. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you do get parents that are living vicariously through the behavior and the finish of their child. And they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
relive some moment that they wish they would have had or some failed opportunity or something. And yeah, what you're trying to help parents realize from that will help take their kid far further than they they could with being irritated with their child.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like how you talked about like racing every race. I feel like a lot of people in BMX, like we get so scoped into something and so like encapsulated into something that you can't really even see like that outside, right? Like we have to go to all these races, or like I have to do all this to help my kid, but you can't see that outside perspective unless somebody else from the external can help you with that. So I feel like it's not like they're at fault. It's just we're so narrowed into getting that done that you can't really see it.
Yeah. It seems like you guys have a really cool family culture at Bend, and we were there a year ago, and it might have been 2 years ago now, but one, you have a really rad track operator,
Yes.
and he loves and cares for the sport, and uh, that's really cool. But in addition, it was like going to that track, you had it seemed like all ages. You had kids that were brand new to the sport, and then you moved into the high schoolers. You had college age kids that were hanging out there, were enjoying it, and then you had people that were a bit older that were out on their bikes. And I really enjoyed that dynamic.
Yeah. I'm really lucky. Like Bend BMX is it's so rad. I just moved locations of my house and it's like 2 minutes away. So it's even greater that way. But I will say I've been at that track since I was 5, so 19 years, right? And it has progressed a lot. It was kind of like a normal track just back in the day. Like it was a good family vibe and everything. But once these boys or men, but they're my boys, they took over the track operation. It was 4 good buddies that used to race back in the day. And they were like, hey, we're going to grow this track. We're going to make this track super sick and super inviting, super welcoming, and just get everybody on their bikes. So we had those 4 solid guys, and one did marketing, one did the track, and like they all had their role, and they really transformed to what it is now. And now we have a lot of other people stepping in. I'm on the board now, so I go into the schools and do presentations, and I'm doing the beginner clinics. But it's just that whole culmination of like a good, solid group of volunteers that just want to see the sport thrive. So it's been super awesome.
Which is a unique dynamic in for a track as well. There are some thriving tracks that have that, but there are a lot of tracks that have track operators that have had to learn the role from a parent who had from the point of view of a parent who I need a place for my kid to ride. My child loves this. I have no experience in the sport, and they've done an awesome job. But there's a different dynamic that comes into play when the TO has a deep background in history and love for the sport.
Yeah, for sure. It's the little things. Even like at the track, we for main events, we call everybody's name out like they're at a national, and like there's a vibe of the music, and like it's all of that stuff that kind of just builds more of a race and more of just like an event than it's just like, oh, the gates drop in, whatever, you know. So that race, like being having that from when they raced back in the day, I think that really helps.
That's cool. Yeah, and I want to clarify is that some of those track operators that step in as parents, they're amazing. There are some of them
Yeah.
that have created amazing tracks as well. But it is really fun and rather unique when you do see a track like Bend that is taken over by people that have such a deep love for the sport.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the year that we were there, that would have been I was racing a 99 GT Speed Series, and I
Nice.
showed up at the track, and because at that point we had just barely gotten back into racing, and
Gotcha.
we got there, and there were multiple people at the track that knew what my bike was, which was not the case at every track.
Yeah, for sure. That's
So
awesome. Yeah, and it's super cool too, like where we live, Bend has mountain biking and road cycling and like all the cycling. And so we get a bunch of people that are like, we have a class out there that's dads that are all on dirt jumpers. And like it's super sick that way. Like it's not just BMXers, so that adds to like the vibe and people know just bikes in general, which is super awesome.
that is cool. Yeah, and then so another side, so you've traveled around, you spent some time traveling around doing clinics. What do you enjoy most about being on the road and going to different tracks?
Yeah, it's been super cool. A little backstory. I graduated college in 2022 and I came home and I was like, you know, Mom, I don't want to get a big girl job yet. So I have this plan and I'm going to buy a van and I'm going to go teach BMX and I'm going to still live in the sport for as long as I can, right? So last year was the first van trip of the summer. And the van was like not fully ready looking back on it now, but we made do with it. And it was super cool. The last one was about a month long. So I went to a lot less tracks on that one, but it was kind of like the test pilot. Like, what are we doing? Like, how do we do this whole thing? Um, and I think the coolest part about doing the van trip is I went to a lot of tracks that were like hidden gems that nobody like, there's no nationals there. Nobody really talks about them because there's not like pros or big experts that are there, but they're awesome tracks. Like you roll up to it and you're like, dude, this is such a fun track. Like I could ride here all week. Um, and just to see like how you said, like some of those track operators that are parents, to see all the hard work that they're putting in and putting into that track and community, that it's like a full-time job. And they are so supportive and just have such a good community and of people. So the cool thing is I feel like I've really built a network around the US of just like good people that are at the foundation of our sport that really care about the sport. Um, and so this van trip this year, it was 2 months and I went even further around and hit even more tracks and was able to go back to some of the same ones that I built the connection with, but then some new tracks that there were some of them that there were some little girls that had never seen a professional woman ride a bike before. And that just like blew their mind. And it was just like so heartwarming. Like I could have really sucked out there on the track, but they would have no idea. They were just stoked to see that a girl could race BMX at that level because they had no idea that was possible. So I think it's all those little impacts and all those connections and just seeing all the cool tracks.
I love that. Yeah, on behalf of my daughter who's 7 and speaking to that dynamic is that it is tough to find women that are involved in the sport as in the way that you are, but also in the way that you care about people, and care about kids and that relationship that you build. And this being said is all outside perspective, and we've never officially met in person. But the people that I've talked to who know who you are and the people that speak to your personality and your character is that there are a lot of things that could be said if you weren't genuine, but it seems like you're very authentic and very genuine in how much you love and care about these kids. And I know that I'm excited because my daughter needs more role models that she can look up to. So it's really cool.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's fun. She enjoys every time that she gets to talk to another girl that's racing, because it
Yeah.
is more few and far between, which I would assume, what was that dynamic like for you growing up? Because I mean, starting at 5, and how many female role models did you have?
Yeah, in Oregon, really none. I think the biggest like role models that I had were like, and it's crazy now, I'm racing her, but like Elise Post or Elise Willoughby, those were kind of the role models, and now I'm like in the class racing her, which is just like mind-boggling. Um, but honestly, like my biggest role model was my brother. He's 7 years older than me and raced and did the thing out of the track, and that's who I followed around and wanted to be just like my brother when I grew up. So it was a lot less of a female, which is, I don't know if that's good or bad, but like it just wasn't really, there weren't any out there that were like in vicinity, right? Like I couldn't go talk to one or I couldn't get an autograph or whatever. Like nobody's coming to Oregon to do that. And that's why I like doing this van tour. Like I'm going to these little tiny towns that like I don't think any other pro is gonna go to. But it touches them and helps them so much. Like I get messages from parents all the time that are like, Sally wanted me to show you this video of her jumping this because you taught her how to do that. And like that just warms my heart. Like they are still working on the stuff that like I helped them with, and they are so happy and excited that they want to send that to Olivia. Like that makes me so happy. So yeah,
Yeah, because you're now a part of their life. You're a part of their
yeah.
story, and they look up to you. And yeah, you were talking about the dynamic of going to different local tracks, which is something that we got to do back in 23. I believe we went to 24 different tracks that year.
Oh,
Uh, and and I love that. I love the dynamic of going to tracks that you are uh that you just get to see their local culture and you get to hang out with them on that level. Did I see recently that you were at Freedom Park?
I was there
Okay.
this last weekend actually.
Okay. Which, so you were talking about cool little tracks. That is such a cool track.
It's very unique. The first time I showed up there, I was like, what the heck? Like there's a bridge and a corkscrew, and I was like, this is crazy. But yeah, it's a hidden little gym. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be the third track that my kids ever raced on. And
Wow.
my daughter actually referenced it the other day, but they don't remember it vividly, but they have this like odd memory of just a bridge that we rode over, and
Yeah.
it's wild. It's a
Yeah.
very different dynamic, and they have a really cool culture they did when we were there in 23, which is really fun to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another part of that that I've really appreciated about going to the or all the tracks is to see the actual BMX family. Like the fact that I can pretty much go to any city and if I needed something, someone would help me out. And that's just how cool BMX is as a family, as a community. Like you can have your opponents and people that you're competitors with, but when it comes down to it, you have family across the nation, if not across the world, just because of BMX, which I think is super special and not like any other sport that you could be in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very, well, I've used the phrase BMX is a very weird sport in a really cool way.
I
Uh,
totally agree with that sentence.
and so, I mean, you referenced Donnie Robinson earlier and Mike Carruth. And so when I did an interview with Mike Carruth, him and I were talking about the fact that you don't go up to somebody and say, "Oh, your kid plays Little League. Okay, cool. We'll come over and hang out at our house."
Yeah,
But if it's somebody that rides BMX, then you're like, "Oh, you should come over. You can stay at our house if you want to."
exactly. Like the amount of open arms that we got where they were like, "Hey, come over. You can park at our house and we'll cook you breakfast and dinner." And we're like, "Okay. I love this sport. This is awesome."
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. So you talked about the other disciplines of bikes. So when you travel around, do you take a mountain bike or do you take other bikes with you?
I wish I had room for it. Both of the van trips, I actually took one of my athletes with me. Her name's Hope Anderson. She's 14 and she lives in Idaho, so it's like the perfect pickup point. Like I leave Oregon and I pick her up in Idaho. So we have two bikes, two full things of like kits and helmets and all of that stuff and like clothes and everything. So they just don't like another bike would not fit. If I did, I'd probably bring my dirt jumper. Like I have a slalom bike that's a dirt jumper. Because there were a lot of cool places where there were like hidden dirt jump like lines and things. And especially like if you go to the BMX track and you ask them where's a good place to ride, they know all the spots. You don't have to question or guess or look it up online. And so we went to some really cool places that'd be fun on a dirt jumper style. I also have a road bike, but I don't foresee myself really bringing that on the road.
That's
So
fair.
yeah,
Yeah, I've never been the person that thought, "Oh, I'm going on vacation. I should bring my road bike with me."
yeah,
That
yeah,
I feel like I can ride roads at home. So
yeah, exactly. And that we'll keep that at home. That's just a training bike. It's okay.
exactly. So what are, I don't know, two or three of the most fun or most unique tracks that you've gotten to go and visit?
Fun and unique. Um, let's see. I would say Freedom Park is probably one of the most unique ones, just with the bridge and the corkscrew and not just all of that situation. Um, when we were in Vermont, Catamount BMX was super fun. It was just like a little gym and like a really good community. It wasn't super unique, but it was just a solid little track and we loved it. Like I think it's the only track in Vermont, so that was fun. I think one of my favorite tracks is Nashville, Tennessee, which is it's a bigger track, but that's one of my favorite overall. Like it's just fun, it's fast, like there's nothing like it kind of thing. Um, let's see. And another one I love is the North Dakota tracks. North Dakota and South Dakota, both of those states, there's 4 tracks total between them, and they're all national level tracks that like nobody talks about. So I love all 4 of those.
At this moment, I'm going to interrupt our episode, our current interview, briefly to give a special shout out and thank you to our sponsors that have backed us financially in this project, in our mission, and give them a huge thank you. So at our gold level, we have Luminex Neon and Marketing Breakthrough. At our silver level, we have Sound Cedar Lumber and Bicycle Thieves. And at our bronze level, we have Pro Start Gates and Justin Shepard, Title Examiner. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for backing us. If you are looking for help with any project that you're working on, if you're looking for some cool things to do, go ahead and check out the links to their websites in our description and go ahead and visit them, show them some love. We are so appreciative for their support. And if you are interested in getting involved in a local track, helping out, or sponsoring a local track, sponsoring the BMX Breakthrough Project as a whole, please reach out at j@bmxbreakthrough.com. You can also go to our website and find out some of the needs of tracks and some of the things that we are working on at bmxbreakthrough.com. Once again, thank you so much for your support. Let's dive back into this conversation.
Yeah, I've talked to, I believe it's Jamie Mills at Fast Tracks.
Yep.
So I've gotten to know him a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Well, and they run like literally a national track. Like the way they run their whole program and everything. Like the first time we rolled up, I was like, is this what I was not expecting this. This is crazy. So they do awesome.
That's neat. Yeah, it seems like they have a lot of community support and they've done really well with their promotion. And when he was talking about their average rider count, it blew me out of the water. Like that, it's amazing how many riders they get. And I mean, for a town in North Dakota that I've never been to and never visited, but I just had no idea that the sport would be that big up there, which is super
well,
cool.
and like the town isn't super big. It's in Bismarck, North Dakota, and it's not like crazy big. It's either you play hockey or you do another sport. So hockey takes over majority of it, and yeah, they get a good amount of riders, and it's the same as Grand Forks, North Dakota, where they just had the national. They get crazy rider count, or like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, like they get all these crazy rider counts in motos, and they're just fighting with hockey, but they're seeming to do pretty well at that.
That's really cool. And well, I mean, I guess there's parts of the year that in North Dakota, I'm sure you're not racing BMX outside.
Yeah, I think majority of the time they get to like negative 30 degrees, and I'm like, wow, okay.
It's
I
chilly.
don't think I could live there.
Yeah. So when you go around and you get to put on clinics and you get to meet community and stuff, what are some of the most fulfilling things that you get to teach or pass on to some of your students and riders?
I would say none of it is actually like on the track. Like anybody could teach you how to do gates and turns and all of that. I think the number one thing that I like to teach is just to keep it fun, right? Like I try to keep my clinics as fun as possible because I know so many people out there that it's like the kids feel like it's a job to go to the track, right? Like they feel like I have to show up and be perfect and do this all the time when your bike should be your free place. Like you go to school and you're like getting like critiqued over everything and whatever throughout the day, it's stressful. And at the track, it should be like, I'm free, I'm on my bike, I'm having fun. So I really try to pass that along in little nuggets of pieces. Like obviously the parents are paying for me to coach them. So I coach them, but we have fun while we're doing it. And like at the beginning of the clinic, I have all the kids tell me a fun fact about themselves, and it can't be anything BMX related. So I get to know these kids about like my favorite like animal is this and blah, 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 or whatever. Like sometimes I get these little nuggets of information that I'm like, that's so cool. I would never have known that you do that. Right. And that kind of like introduces them to being comfortable talking to me because I know something about them. They know something about me. Like I start with a silly thing that I say, like, random about myself. So I love doing that. And I love having them feel comfortable to talk to adults and talk to someone like scary, I guess. Like I am a pro, so I look like scarier to most kids and they're shy. So I love that they have to get out of their box and talk to adults. I feel like that's super important and just to have fun.
I like that. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the skills, like you said, the skills are something that you can learn, but what you're doing is you're really focusing on building that relationship and trying to create something that's memorable, because I think probably the greatest thing that a kid could do is walk away, in 15 years and say, oh, one of the most monumental moments in my life and life on a bike was when Olivia came to our track.
Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
really cool.
Super cool. Yep. I love it. Makes my heart full.
That's awesome. How long, so has it been 2 years that you've been focusing on doing clinics and things?
So I kind of started, I think when I was like 17, I like did my first clinic and I feel like it was a complete disaster. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I've been to clinics, so like I can coach them. That's not the same thing at all. And I'm pretty sure I had like 40 kids sign up and it was just me. And I was like, this is crazy. And then when I went to college, I didn't really coach very much because I was in Indianapolis at Marian University. And I just didn't have like my people, like I wasn't coaching because I was kind of an outsider. Like I was a girl from Oregon, nobody really knew. And then I actually had one of the parents that I had met along the journey. He was like, hey, what do you think about coaching my daughter? And I was like, well, you guys live in Washington. Like, how is that supposed to work? He's like, I think you should do something remote. And I was like, okay. And so it literally started from that one moment. And now I'm doing fully remote coaching and I try to help as many people as I can from as far as away as I am, just because there aren't coaches out there readily available to all of these people. So I do everything I can remotely, like I'm in person. And then I think that was my junior year of college. And then it just kind of kept rolling from there. I love kids and I feel like it was a natural talent to be silly with the kids and have fun and have them listen and just all of those things. And then, like I said, when I graduated, then I was like, all right, full force, we're buying a van and we're doing the thing. So it kind of progressed slowly and naturally. And I think that was the best because I learned along the way as I was trying to help people. So it's going really well right now. I love what I do.
Okay, so you talked about the dynamic of coaching remotely. So what is that? What does that look like? And does it work? Obviously, I would assume that it works pretty well considering you're continuing to do it. But yeah, what is that dynamic like?
Yeah, I think it's more like building a friendship, right? So it's the remote coaching works as much as your kid wants to buy into it. So I will be here to support and to give all of the information out there. If your kid doesn't want to buy in, it doesn't work that great. And there's been clients that I've had that I've said, hey, like, I think this is a waste of your money because I don't think your kids are doing the work. Like, I can see it on my side, they're not doing it. And I, from day one, have never, and I think this comes from how my parents were, I am not an enforcer, I'm a supporter. So I will be here to support as much as I can to these athletes, but I'm never going to be like, there's a repercussion if you don't do your workout. Like, if they don't want to do it, then they don't want to do it, and they're not going to put 100% in. So I train mostly girls because I feel like I speak to them the best. I have a couple boys, but they're like friends, like close people that we know. And pretty much I build like a friendship where these kids like feel comfortable to come to me with anything. It could be BMX or not BMX related. And I'm there to support them. I give them a training program that's fully online. They have it on their phone. So they have sprints. They go on their phone. They can see what they need to do. And then I do a video review. So each week or every other week, I'll call them. We'll go through their sprint form. They'll write their notes. And for the next sprint session, they can go fix that. So it's not like immediate. Like it's not like I'm there for the sprint session. But it's giving them progression that they normally wouldn't have. And like I said, I go through a mental coaching book because I truly believe my success came from that I was mentally stronger than most of the other girls. And I was really lucky to have my mom in my ear saying all these positive things and not letting me get down on myself. But a lot of people don't have that. So we go, it's kind of like a book report. They read a couple chapters and I do a call with them and they tell me what they think is interesting and we kind of go through it. So it's really like through all those aspects, I'm learning about what they do day in, day out, what they do with their families, what they have for like what they're doing for fun. And it just like build the relationship that they want to do their training and they want to be talking to me and doing more, which I think's super special. And I have seen a lot of progress. It just depends if they want to buy in or not. So
That's neat. Thank you for, yeah, thanks for diving into that because I think the dynamic is one that is, like you said, the student has to get excited about it in the same way as online classes is you have to
mm-hmm.
be bought and you have to decide that you're going to make that work.
Yeah.
And especially in the case of kids that are training and their parents are paying for it. And I think your honesty and being very upfront and forward and saying, I think this is a waste of your money, I think is one that will probably win a lot more people. Just
Yeah.
because just because people want to know that. And
Mm-hmm.
they may not see the conversations that you're having with their kid, or their kid may be telling them that they're training, but maybe not you.
Yeah,
And
for sure. For sure.
I think
Well,
that's
and I
really
think it's been cool too. I don't really have like an age limit on it. And like I've had a couple moms that are under my program that have been racing longer than I've been alive. And that's been super rewarding because they trust me and they trust my perspective. I'm an accountability buddy, but I'm also like current in the sport and I have a different perspective than what they've been doing for the last 20 years. So it's been cool. Like I work with the littles that have no knowledge of it and they just need all of the information that I can give them. And then there's some that like we're critiquing what's happened over the 20 years and what we can do and how we can progress and keep moving forward. So it's cool on both sides.
that is. Yeah. The fact that you have people of all in different generational roles that are supporting you is really neat.
Yeah.
And it's again speaks to your character too, of being able to, because people wouldn't listen to you. They wouldn't be willing to accept you as a coach if they didn't respect you. And
Yeah.
so it goes to show how you carry yourself as well. So
Yeah.
that's really
I
neat. But
appreciate all my moms out there.
that's cool. Awesome. Well, Olivia, I'm so thankful to finally get to have this conversation with you. And I think that what you've done for kids and for families is really neat. Again, back to what you've done to try and help parents out, to be more supportive. You've referenced multiple times the dynamic of the mental side of things and your parents being so supportive, which is really neat. And you said that as you, we can close with this, but as you mentioned, you would get into something and they would say, if you're going to start it, you have to finish out the season. Um, how did that apply? Obviously, BMX is really a long season, and sometimes it's weather dependent, but it kind of depends on what level of BMX you're playing in.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that dynamic look like of you starting BMX and, you know, kind of pushing you through to the end of that season, even if it was something you kind of got weary of?
I think that it like looking back at it now as an adult, my parents were just trying to have like teach me commitment and making sure that I was if I said yes and they're gonna spend money on something that like I'm gonna commit to it. And I respected that. I feel like I kind of understood that at a younger age. Like I said, I didn't come from a lot of money. We were kind of broke. And so I knew that like my parents' hard-earned money, if I wanted to go do a sport, like that costed money. And it wasn't ever like pushed in my face, like you're costing me money. But I understood that it was valuable. And I never really had that like I really want to quit and be like sassy and whatever. Like I had my teen years and I was sassy, but I just had that level of respect for them that I never really had that like kind of back and forth. For the one BMX season, I think maybe like I said, hey, I want to quit. And they're like, nope, you said you were going to, like, we have that rule. And I said, okay, cool. I guess I'm going to race. Like, I didn't
Okay.
have to go back and forth. So I respect both my parents. And I feel like it came from a young age of if you set the standard, you set the rules, then there's not much to fight about or get all weird about. So
I like that. That's good. And then actually, no, I have one more question for you. What is the role that because a lot of people start looking into the sponsorships as their kids get older and things. I'm just curious, from your perspective, you have sponsors. What is the role that your sponsors have played in your journey?
I think that the main role has been community from day one. I've never been on a team that I don't feel like family. I've currently been on Full Tilt for like 7 years, I think, maybe longer than that. I don't even know. It's been the longest team I've been on. And I got on the team because I was a world champ. It was in 2017. They were recruiting all the world champs, and I said, "Cool, yeah, I'd love to be a part of Full Tilt. Like, that'd be awesome." And it was just such a family dynamic that I loved it. And there was never any like the BS of like, I've never had a contract. Like, it's been a handshake, and they trust me, I trust them, kind of thing. And before that, I was on Bay Area BMXers, and that was a family. Like, we were welcomed with open arms. And so yes, I do get jerseys and entry fees and things like that, but I value the community. And now that I'm traveling a bit more on my own, like my mom, we're gonna go to Texas next weekend together, but it's a lot cheaper for me to go by myself as an adult. Um, it's nice to have that community of people that if anything does happen, I can be like, hey, can you please help me with this? Like one of the dads in the pit, hey, can you help me do this? Like, I don't know how to fix this. Or, hey, mom, I really need some ibuprofen. Can I have some? And they're like right there for you, right? So it's just that family and support. That's what I really got the most out of the teams, if that makes sense.
I like that. Yeah, and I think that that's important because multiple conversations that have come from different episodes that I've done have led themselves over to the team dynamic, and I think that community is really the focus of that. I've talked to a handful of people that have talked about, well, the reason that I got on a team was because of the support, and I'm taking the kids and my wife isn't there, or she's taking the kids and I'm not going to be there, and whatever the case may be. And so that community that you're talking about is somebody that can help out, and somebody that may have a tube when you don't have one, or help you out with cranks and all that stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah. And I think a lot of parents really get swept in by like, well, they're giving me more stuff and more stuff. In the long run, the stuff doesn't matter. It's the people, the people that are going to be there and behind you the whole time. So
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your conversation and your commitment to the sport and your commitment to your families and your kids, and what you do for them. That's super cool. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. This was an awesome podcast. I love it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.